Yo, welcome back to the Shuffle Squad. Zach Lesage here. Happy New Year to everyone who's been celebrating. I wish you and all your family the best. And I figured I'd kick off the year with a tier list. I do these every couple weeks or so, or whenever I feel like it's necessary. We've had the Phantasmal Flames metagame for a little bit now. And what I've done is I've put the categories as S1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, and 3. I know oftentimes I'll just go S1, 2, 3, and I'm like, I really want to put it at the 1.5, or even sometimes I want to put a 1.25. I'm just going to give my honest opinions on where the metagame stands. I've made some new icons for some decks, so even if you're a Festival Lead believer, I'll give you my opinion on the decks. Since we have around 40 decks to go through, I don't want this video to be like 2 hours long. I'm not trying to make it the Stranger Things finale or anything like that. So we're going to start going through it. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments what deck you're rocking with in 2026. I'm really trying to do my best to make this the best year I can for the Shuffle Squad channel. So expect a lot more content from me now that we're over this holiday season. So kicking things off, Alakazam. Alakazam is not going to be in S tier. I'll give it that. And I don't think it's tier 1. I don't know if it's tier 1.5. I think this to me is a clear tier 2 deck. I think it has some opportunities to beat some decks like Goldango. It has some opportunities to beat some other decks. However, it does really struggle against some other matchups like Dragapult Dusknoir, can struggle against Gardevoir, and that's really what's going to knock it down. I think at some points this deck could hover, depending on how much Goldango there is, but I think there's too many problems with the deck to really consider it anything above a tier 2 deck right now. That's not to say it can't top 8 regionals, but you'd really have to have that clear run with the deck. I'm actually, you want to know what? I'm probably going to give the deck a tier 2.5 because I think tier 2 is still probably something that has some better decks in it. I might adjust some of these as we go through. So let's go through there. You want to know what? Maybe I do tier 2. I'm honestly thinking about like, where do I put these decks? Yeah, you want to know what? Rocking it tier 2. I'm gonna go with my original one. And a lot of it has to do with Blood Moon Ursaluna. I think Blood Moon Ursaluna is like a step above some of these tier 3 decks. I think the deck can compete. I think it has a little bit less going for it than a deck like Alakazam. And it's like, it's fine. It's a niche playable deck. And that's where I'm going to put it. It's probably going to be like a catch-all for all these decks that are a little bit better than the decks that aren't necessarily the greatest. We haven't really seen too much of this deck since it kind of kicked off in the Mega Evolutions format. I don't really expect to see too much more of it. Ceruledge, to me, is one of those decks that had a glow up because of Lunatone, but it really has not seen as much success since then. I'm probably going to put it at tier 2. The deck might actually be approaching a tier 2.5 status where it just kind of like falls off the face of the planet. I think it's okay in a lot of ways. However, it's not the best Briar Enjoyer deck. I think a deck like Terrabox or a deck like Donzard might be a little bit better than that. And yeah, I think this deck's kind of on its way out. Prove me wrong if you're a Ceruledge believer. Charizard Noctowl, to me, is going to be a tier 1 deck. It's not S tier. At one point I thought it would be, but I'm going to be pretty selective. I've done a lot of testing towards Toronto and Merida regionals, and I'm going to put Donzard as a tier 1. Just not enough stuff like truly going for the deck to put it as tier S, and I think as players have figured out how to play some of the matchups, it's not as originally powerful as you saw. So I think we see that with a lot of decks. The test of time really can prove a lot, and I think like the deck is kind of declining a little bit. Now, don't get me wrong, it's incredibly powerful, and I'm sure that there's got to be some ways to upgrade it, but right now in its current form, it's just chilling at tier 1. We're gonna go with Charizard Pidgeot. Now, don't get this confused with the Donzard deck. This is like an OG Pidgeot Charizard, similar to what we saw Gabriel Fernandez, what he would have piloted in the finals of LAIC. So Pidgeot Zard, I think this deck is probably just like a standard 1.5. I really like, it's not really in the metagame because Donzard took over and it also plays Pidgeot. So that's where it can get a little bit confusing. I do think it's like better than decks like Alakazam and Lunatone Ceruledge, not by too much, because it's also fading out of the metagame. Conkeldurr. I honestly think Conkeldurr is a deck that like maybe was tier 2, now it's tier 2.5. It's kind of like falling off the face of the planet, and there's gonna be a lot of decks like that. Like, we have a pretty core group of decks, and I think the biggest complaint about this format is we haven't really seen too much change in the past year. We really just see the better decks getting better, like decks like Gardevoir, Gholdengo, etc., Charizard, and some other decks just can't really keep up with that. So the power creep's real for like the top 5 or so decks, and then the other decks just exist. Take away those decks, and maybe these decks see a little bit more play. But Conkeldurr is at 2.5 right now. Crustle. Now, Crustle's a deck that I actually played to a regionals this year. I did awful, but I also hit some of the worst matchups imaginable. It's a deck that I maybe was like nice to before because of that experience. Like, I was just like, oh, you want to know what I played to a regionals? It has to be good. I think Crustle is, there's a lot of decks that are just playing Mega Lopunny, and that's a card that just runs through Crustle in my experience. So I'm going to give Crustle a 2.5 as well, whereas otherwise I would have thought it would have been like a 2. It really just loses to Gardevoir, it's losing to Gholdengo. Sure, you might be able to beat Charizard and Noctowl if they don't tech against you, but like, ugh. I think Crustle's just kind of down there. Cynthia's Garchomp. Again, we're going to be loading up the 2.5. It's like one of those holiday meals. You got your turkey, your stuffing, your cranberries. In this case, we probably went to the household with 1,000 sides. 2.5, I catch all for a lot of these decks. Yeah, I think Garchomp is just a deck that we thought would be okay. It could get some day 2s at regionals. It's really not cutting it in our current metagame. It's really not seeing the success it wants to, and I think it really struggles against a lot of the top decks. That's where 2.5 is going to be. It's going to be for those decks that are falling off, but not to the point of being tier 3. Charizard, Dragapult. And I might change some of the order of this just to change it up. I think that this deck is probably a tier 1.5 deck. Just really not seeing a lot of play. It's fine. I don't think it's like crazy in the metagame. It's one of those things where like it's acceptable. You can play this tier regionals. I think you could cash out of regionals with this deck. Is it as good as Donzard? Probably not. No, like maybe you should just be playing Donzard. Even though that deck's a little bit of a glass cannon deck at times. That's generally where I'm at. Dragapult Dusknoir is going to be tier 1 for me. I think that this deck is hovering between like S and 1 all the time. However, it's at 1 right now. I don't think it holds up to the rest of the decks at S as much as we want it to, and it has its own problems with the metagame. If the metagame switches more to Noctowl Charizard, the deck can probably shoot up a little bit more, but its overall power level is going to be putting it at a 1 right now in its metagame. Straight Dragapult. Oh, that's a tough one. I think this deck, Straight Dragapult, struggles against Gardevoir. I think it can struggle against Gholdengo. I think it beats Charizard Noctowl for the most part, and it does well against Dragapult Dusknoir. I think this deck's probably, I want to put it at like 1.5 because 2 seems disrespectful. So I'm gonna put it there. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. Like, I think any of these like decks that deviate off of top decks, so like the Pidgeot Charizard, I'd rather be playing Noctowl Charizard. Charizard Dragapult, I'd rather be playing either Donzard or Dragapult Dusknoir. Same thing with Dragapult. Like, I don't think we gain enough value when it comes to these decks to necessarily run them in the 1.5 currently. That's really where I'd go. I honestly, like, for me as a competitive player, someone who's chasing a World's Invite, I'm sticking to S and 1 decks for the most part. I think last season I played way too many like tier 1.5 and 2 decks, and it's really holding me back as a player. So something to consider. I also have a lot of these decks built. I'm going to put Dragapult at 1.5. Ethan's Typhlosion. I think Ethan's Typhlosion is probably a tier 2.5 deck. Just not really as strong as Alakazam. Alakazam has taken over as a de facto better single prize card deck right now. I don't want to do Festival Lead right now because I don't know if I want to put it in 3 or 2.5. So we're going to move on to EVBox. I think EVBox has kind of fallen off the face of the planet. Emma has not really, she saw the success, has absolutely crushed it. and then the deck's kind of fallen off again. So in the Phantasmal Flames metagame, I think we're seeing a lot more EV box turn into EV Terra box hybrids, similar to what like Josh Frank and Alex Shemansky played to LAIC. I haven't necessarily like put those in this list as much as I wanted to. So I have EV box straight up is like the Noctowl Flareon deck, and Terra box is kind of the OG one. I don't know necessarily how to make the icon for that, but I think that like a hybrid Terra box is kind of at 1.5. And I'm just going to put it right there while we're at it, like talking about both. Terra box encompasses a lot, and I think like it being a different kind of archetype, like I think it's a 1.5 deck. I don't think it's 1. I don't think it's S. It's just not up there. I think it's definitely in the 1.5 category. So that's where I'm putting it. As I'm jumping through here, I think Toxtricity box is a failed archetype. The deck doesn't really hold its own against a lot of stuff. Gardevoir has found ways to beat a lot of these dark decks. Decks like these typically lose to Dragapults. And I think decks like even Goldango having single prize cards really can push these Fringe decks all the way to tier 3. So we're going to kick off our tier 3 with Toxbox. Maybe Toxbox is worth a 2.5, but I want to see a Toxtricity player prove it to me that they can actually take this card, which I think is an amazing card, by the way. It has incredible synergy with Monkey Dory, and it's even brought up that other Brute Bonnet to some level of success. I want to see it do well at a regionals. I want to see it do well at a League Cup, League Challenge. Post about it, talk about it, back it up. I don't want to hear about like, yeah, I won 3 games on PTCG Live. Like, that's cool. Everyone can have their own personal options and success levels with decks. I'm just trying to be real and say that I think that the deck is not great. So sorry, it's my list. Sorry, Toxbox. We're going to drop another deck in that category. We're going to go with Mewtwo Spidops. Team Rocket's Mewtwo. I think it's a deck that has not really popped off. I thought it was pretty hype after Tord did well with it in Japan at a Champions League, and then the deck just failed. Sometimes Tord just plays around with us and is much better than the average player. So if he has some success with the deck, that's cool. He also made day 2 with a Mega Charizard X kind of concoction. We're in Tord's Worlds, and he's just kind of playing with us. So I'm going to put that deck as 3. As much as I'm hyped to see those cards come out as Prize Pack Series 8s, not really feeling it. We're going to go for a tier S. I think Gardevoir straight up. This is a Gardevoir without Jellicent build. Is going to be tier S. Players like Henry Chow honestly bounce back and forth, and I think that they control a large portion of the metagame when it comes down to it. Like, I can't come up with a better Gardevoir list than Henry because he understands the beating pulse of the metagame to such a level where he can decide whether Gardevoir Jellicent or straight up Gardevoir is the better choice. Now, whether that continues to be true or not, I don't see a reason for that to change until we see rotation. That's also going to put Gardevoir Jellicent up there because right now he swaps back and forth with them so frequently that both of them are in S tier by default. They've kind of become the same deck, only changing a few cards over. So that's why in my best top 10 decks, I only put one Gardevoir deck now. And it also leaves room for other decks. However, they both kind of are functioning the same archetype because they both are even playing Frillish. Like, it's honestly like a few card change between the two. But they're just so powerful decks. Gardevoir has been dominating so long, and that's where we're going to be putting it right now. Joltik Goldango is probably going to be a tier 2.5 deck, just a little bit outdated. I think 2.5 could also be for these outdated decks. I made day 2 with it at a regionals in Monterey this season, and it's just better to probably be playing Joltik Box or Goldango right now. If you're a fan of the Django deck, it's that's cool, but it's just not really hidden as much as other decks. Mega Venusaur is a deck that I'm going to put in tier 3. Hasn't really popped off. It had a few day 2 finishes, so like I'm on the fence of where it overly stands, but like it's not popping off right now. It's really struggling against the metagame, I think. So we're going to be putting it at 3. We're also going to be putting another Mega deck beside it, Lucario. Mega Lucario was great in Simone Chartier's their Goldango list at LAIC. Has it done anything after that? Nope, not really at all. So I think that Lucario is just a deck that we're going to see maybe post-rotation. I think a lot of mega decks are just like not as great as the best of our Scarlet Violet era, whereas the Mega Evolution era probably takes off a little bit more after that. So I think it's still worthwhile to pick up the cards like Lucario, Venusaur, all of those cards. Like, I've been picking them up. They're also super cheap. Shout out to our sponsors, Kayfabe Cards and PTCGL Store. Stockpile them right now because it's worthwhile for when the format changes, because things can change in an instant. Still got quite a few decks to go through here. Munkidori Frostlass is probably where I'm going to put it as a tier 2 deck. I think that this deck is underrated in our formats. It hasn't necessarily popped up too much more than that. It's mainly seen as a Marnie's Grimmsnarl deck, but we're going to be putting it at tier 2 for now, because I think putting it at tier 2.5 is probably a little bit too low. It can definitely beat some players and catch them off guard. Greninja is another deck that I'm probably going to be putting at tier 2. Not enough players have really put enough effort with this deck. It's seen some glimpses of success. I know that players, I think it's like Losta or Andreas, has been playing the deck online and has seen a decent bit of success with it lately. So I'm going to give the credit to where it's due for Greninja right now. Not really holding on to much more than that. We have Armor Rouge Ho-Oh Box. I'm going to put this deck at tier 2.5. Again, kind of like a failed archetype. Overall, like, it's just like falling off the metagame. Didn't really pop off as much as we thought it would. Get some new techs every single set. However, does that really matter? Its play rate's really not there. So like, you could really see like a lot of decks in the 2.5, 3 play rate, success rate, etc. are the things that are going to be diminishing from the top. I'm going to go with Marnie's Grimmsnarl. I'm going to put this deck at 2. It's really kind of fallen off from where before it might have been S. It's like all right. I think that the fact that Munkidori Frostlass is on the kind of same page as it, and it's on the same page as Greninja, really shows how much it's fallen from grace. Hot deck for sure. Don't know if it's like worthwhile to play with right now. It's kind of where I'm at with it. Lopunny Dusknoir is a deck that I'm going to put at 2.5. I think that this deck is cool, especially in like underdeveloped metagames. Very, very, very cool deck. Is it successful? It's not really seeing that success level. So that's one thing that I'm a little bit worried about it. 2.5 is continuing to catch all with these lists. Hopzation Box is going to be at tier 3. The deck has never really cut its. Hopzation's cool. I picked up all my prize stamp versions of that card. I'm really waiting for the deck to see success, and I think we're going to be waiting at least until post-rotation. Hydrapple is going to go right beside it. I think Hydrapple might be like that 2.75 deck. Definitely a bit of a meme status. And it's a cool deck when it works, but a Glass Cannon Fringe deck is probably almost always going to be tier 3, especially when there's some decks that are like constantly making day 2 at regionals at 2.5. 3 is just going to be tough. There might be even a tier 4 with some decks that I would not recommend to play in the future. Moving on, we got Toxtricity Sharpedo, another tier 3 deck. I think if your deck doesn't necessarily beat Goldango or Gardevoir or even Charizard Noctowl, I think that that deck is definitely worthy to put in tier 3. Sorry, Mega Evolution Pokemon, you're not really cutting it. Slowking is a deck that I'm going to put at tier 2.5. It's a cool deck for sure. I think you could definitely win with Slowking in the right metagame. However, again, it is missing some pieces to be tier 2, but it is better than tier 3. I will give it that. Raging Bolt, I think, is seeing a little bit more success nowadays. However, I am going to put it in tier 2. I don't think it necessarily holds up with the rest of the metagame too well. And considering it's always struggled against the Gardevoir matchup, and even Goldango can be a little bit tough for it, I'm going to put it at tier 2. Slacking is a deck that we've seen a little bit more players play online. I think 2.5 is probably the best place to put it. It's all right. It's kind of the flavor of the month. So typically it would probably be in the tier 3, but right now it's kind of in the tier 2.5, where it has made some day 2s at regionals, and it's kind of cool across the board. Festival lead, I'm going to be nice to it. It's New Year's Day. I'm feeling pretty happy. I'm going to give it Festival lead a 2.5. It's better than a lot of decks in tier 3 by a large margin. However, it's not going to reach tier 2. It's probably the lower end of tier 2.5 because this is not an ordered tier list. I should also note that. But do keep in mind that Festival lead is kind of cool. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it to play like most decks in 2.5. However, it is a cool deck. Mega Charizard X, I'm going to put it tier 3. Unfortunately, we're going to go with the theme of Mega decks just kind of really not holding up in our metagame well. So yeah, sorry, Mega Charizard. You're just chilling there. Maybe once we see post rotation, or maybe once we get Mega Charizard Y from Ascended Heroes, that might be a little bit better. We're going to go to tier S again and go to Lunatone Goldango, Lunatone. The deck kind of has it all right now, where you can play counters for Mirror, counters for Crustle, and counters for whatever. Like, I think like with the Mega Lopunny in the deck, I think with decks kind of playing Technical Machine Evolution, the deck kind of reached its full form, and most lists are going to be only a couple cards off. If you haven't really checked out a new Goldango list, a lot of them have changed a lot since the list we've seen at the Latin American International Championships. So stay tuned for more of that, likely during the top 10 best decks video. But yeah, I think Goldango's going to continue to be up there with Gardevoir for the rest of the metagame. Joltik Box is a deck that I think is completely underrated right now. I'm going to give it 1.5. It's my tier list. I've always had a soft spot for Joltik Box. Sue me. Actually, don't sue me. I don't want to get sued. But it's one of those things where Joltik Box, I think it can hold its own against a lot of the decks, including Noctowl Charizard, Dragapult Dusknoir. You can definitely beat Goldango and definitely beat Gardevoir. I think those matchups are a little bit tougher. However, you are chilling with most of the other decks in 1.5, and you're doing well against tier 2. So when we think about the metagame as a whole, it's not just necessarily looking at the top down, because yes, the S tier is going to be tough. The S tier is going to be tough for every single deck for the rest of this list. But yeah, Joltik is a step above decks like Alakazam and Lunatic Ledge and stuff like that. So I think Joltik Box can do really well throughout it. Poison Roaring Moon is another deck here. I'm gonna put it at 2.5. I think that you could like maybe top cut a League Cup with it. I think it can see some success. I think getting the Poison Donk off on some decks like Gardevoir or even Goldango can give you an edge. Like, again, I'm not gonna say play the decks in 2.5, but it's got to go somewhere. Mega Absolute Box is going to be tier 2. I think this deck is really falling from grace, similar to Grimmsnarl, not really holding its own against Gardevoir. I think it's like a powerful deck, but Tord really pushed it to its limits, winning the regionals, and that's where things are going to kind of leave it. Kangaskhan Bouffalant is a deck that's kind of taken over. It's doing a little bit better than the Mega Absolute Box, so I'm going to put it at tier 1.5. Definitely can see some success, and Enzork is a deck that I'm going to probably put at tier 2 as well. I think a lot of these decks are really struggling as Gardevoir becomes more powerful and shifts up its form. They can't really pinpoint where Gardevoir is going, and they sometimes struggle. Gardevoir is not really losing to dark decks. Goldango is not really losing to fire decks. Goldango is losing more to Alakazam than Ethan's Typhlosion, right? So I think that's something to consider, and Gardevoir is losing more to Goldango than Enzork. So as much as type advantage is everything, it's not always everything. And I think that's why those decks hold up S. They're very resilient. I think tier 1, like those are the top 5 decks between S and 1. Like there's no doubt in my mind. And then tier 1.5, I mean, we can even put Charizard Pidgeot, Charizard Dragapult, and into like tier 2. And then I think like Noctowl, Terrabox, Joltik Box, and Kangaskhan Bouffalant round out the top 10. That leaves us with one spot, and then you can choose one tier 2 deck. But I think overall, the top 5 decks to me are definitely Gardevoir, Goldango, Donzard, and Dragapult Dusknoir. And if you want to put Gardevoirs together as one deck, I think like the next best deck is probably Terrabox or Kangaskhan Bouffalant, depending on the day. So yeah, this is where I kind of put the metagame right now. It's January 1st. I think this really is accurate. So I hope that this helps you decide if you have any early League Cups this season or League Challenges. This is where the metagame's kind of placed. Choose decks that do well against the S and 1 tier, or be playing those decks. And if you're playing a deck in tier 3, prove me wrong. Let me know in the comments. And be sure to check out our sponsors. Kayfabe Cards does support the Shuffle Squad. I really rock with them heavily. They're going to be at Toronto Regionals as one of the merchants. I might even be there as well behind the booth. So if you get a chance, come up and say hi. Say that the Shuffle Squad or Zach Lesage sent you. PTCGL store, feel free to pick up some codes. Beef up that account. It's January 1st. Let's play some more PTCGL. I know that I want to be doing that myself. Element Sleeves really helps put the food on my table. So if you want to support the Shuffle Squad, use code Lesage to save $1 off of each pack of sleeves. I only use those sleeves at regionals, League Cups, whatever. You might have seen me post about it on X, Instagram, or Facebook. So yeah, stay tuned for that and check out more stuff. But yeah, check out the description if there's anything else you want to do to follow around with the squad. Stay tuned for more videos from me. Peace out, much love, and have a great one. Want to support the Shuffle Squad? Be sure to check out all of our sponsors in the description to pick up Pokemon TCG singles, sealed, and PTCG live codes. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed the content that we have today, and maybe you'll click on one of these other videos, enjoy those videos too. If you haven't already, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comments what video you want to watch next. Until next time, we'll catch up with all y'all later. Have yourself a great day.